Welcome back to Indainomics. This is a special show where we are looking at India's Capex cycle and whether it has picked up. We've been speaking with Shankar Raman of Larsen & Toubro, Nikhil Gupta of Motilal Oswal, the economist from Motilal Oswal, and Hetal Gandhi, director at CRISIL. Gentlemen and Hetal, thank you very much for waiting by. Nikhil, Mr. Shankar Raman drew up the several areas, station development, freight corridor, semiconductors, which could give us a good investment in the future. But are you getting a sense of groundswell of demand? Ultimately, people have to consume more. And will the K-shaped recovery be a hurdle?
Exactly, Latha. So first, the good point is that our supply side is sorted. Mr. Raman mentioned about the bank. We all know how good the financial position of the banking sector is. Their balance sheets are clean, corporate balance sheets are clean. So they are ready to go ahead, provided there is sufficient demand growth. So your question is absolutely valid. What do we expect of demand growth? Now, when we talk of demand growth, there are two major buyers in any country. One is household and the other is government. We all know that for the next many years, the government across the world, not only in India, across the world are going to remain in consolidation. By which I mean that every government will have to reduce their fiscal deficit, which increased to 2x or 3x because of the pandemic just a couple of years ago. Coming to the households, which are, or the people of the country, who are the primary consumers everywhere in the world. Now, what has happened in India, for example, because of high inflation, we usually say that because of high inflation, my consumption growth should have been affected adversely. That has not happened in India, at least till the end of December 2022.
Okay.
It has started happening now, and there were some signs in the December quarter. But let's say till about September 22, there was no such concern on private consumption growth in the country, despite high inflation. How is that possible? The only way it is possible is because households, while they were growing their consumption, their savings took a serious hit. Now, savings and investments are two sides of the same coin. You can have higher investments without higher savings only and only if you have a higher current account deficit. Now, this year current account deficit was high, but it is very clear that the majority of the surge in current account deficit was because of prices, and that is why you touched upon it. Inflation has played an important role in higher current account deficit, higher investments everywhere. But next year, for example, when we talk about the outlook, we all know that current account deficit is going to remain narrow. In fact, for FY23 as well, it has been much sanguine than what we all expected at the beginning of the year.
Agreed.
Because of services exports, because of a couple of other things. But if current account deficit comes down, then my investment rate can inch up only and only if savings rise comfortably. All in all, what I'm trying to say is that even if savings go up, I do not see investment rate, by which I mean investment as percentage of GDP, going up significantly or crossing the pre-COVID level, even in FY24.
Got that. Okay.
In fact, if you look at the survey of professional forecasters by the RBI, this is very clear by the consensus.
Okay. Yeah, I guess potential growth also is now getting reduced. We had a 36% gross fixed capital formation as a percentage of GDP in the 2000s to 2010, when GDP also was at 8%. Now both the numbers are receding, and we have not yet got there. We have just perhaps got out of COVID. Mr. Shankar Raman, a final question to you. There are rumblings, when we ask why is FDI not picking up, in spite of PLI, in spite of an external thrust like China Plus. There are grumblings. I couldn't get all those people on the panel, but that land acquisition is still an issue. Litigation is still an issue in India. But taxes, especially the latest 20%, is giving an idea that ease of doing business, we're not up there. You pointed out to PPP. So even if balance sheets are clean, both financial and non-financial, do we still have a way to go before we get to the 2004-2008 mojo?
I would believe so, because I think the consistency in policy making, we are yet to hit the right levels. We are still learning as we go along and tweaking regulations. Every bad instance that the regulators or the government comes across, becomes an opportunity for some sweeping changes. And what happens is, I think when you shift goalposts, the returns and the entire economics around the investments change.
Yes.
I think what the FDI possibly is looking for is stability in policy. We need to go up several notches in ease of doing business. I think there is a big gap between what we want to do and what we actually land up doing.
Yeah.
We are prisoners of the bureaucratic process, both at the state and the central level. We are far away from a single window clearance where everything is, ironed out before investment is being sought. We are a democracy and a vibrant democracy, so public interest litigations cannot be really, set aside. We have to factor those as well. And with this new energy towards climate and preservation of ecology, etc., there are further interest groups that are also coming up.
Yep.
And we actually should accept to some extent that construction does not happen without destruction.
Yeah.
Something gets destructed, something gets constructed, and we need to achieve that right balance.
Yes.
So both between the policymakers' own views of what is construction, what is destruction, and the people's view, there's a big gap.
Okay.
So according to me, I guess we are getting better year on year, but I don't think foreign capital will come in a rush unless certain clarity is emerging.
Okay.
And also the fact that the interest rate hike overseas have also in a way put a spoke in the wheel.
Yes.
I think people are beginning to evaluate the rupee investment, the returns that the dollar fund will get, adjusted for all these uncertainties to certain rates that they would get in their local markets.
Fair points.
I guess once that settles down, possibly it'll improve.
Okay, so it's a glass half full is what the panel is saying. It's definitely recovered from the COVID lows, but we aren't even getting our own mojo back, what we had in the first decade of the current millennium. And more importantly, there are things that we can solve in terms of maybe ease of doing business and land acquisition, litigation, single window clearance, and there is, of course, the global headwind also to tackle. So investment has serious amount of headwinds, but at least we've got the mojo back from the COVID levels. Thank you very much, Mr. Shankar, Raman, Nikhil and Hetal for joining in this conversation.